What's going on, guys? Welcome to Wiretapped Truths. Jesse Perez, Jesse P, with Jack and Leland. We launched our first episode last week. Just yesterday actually. Got a couple of good reviews. Shout out to at Ziggy underscore Duck. Does a lot for the Wire. Put together an unofficial Wire reunion. Like he had like this guy's met up with Trey Shane. He got called on stage with Boot and Bodie. You know, Trey Shaney does songs and stuff. He went to Vegas to see him, and Trey Shaney called him on stage, and he hung out with him and the whole weekend, and just all the stories he has, man. I went to and he put it out there. Hey, I got an extra ticket if anybody in New York to see Andre Royo in a one man play, and he had the red hat, and Andre Royo met us afterwards, and I got to get marked with the red hat, and I met Andre.
Oh, that's great.
He knows all the, he knows all the, and Andre Royo was like, yo, make sure the stage manager came up to us and he was like, Andre Royo said for you two to wait for him afterwards. So you always feel special with he knows all these Wire people. So,
that's love. That's love, yeah. Man.
And I'm sure they still keep in touch. You know what I mean? Like, that's cool that they still talk to each other.
Yeah. And he pumped out the Wire. So, episode for us yesterday. So shout out to him. Thanks for the help. Shout out to Facebook group. We're not we're talking about female co-hosts maybe in the next week or two. Joining us for a trial run. We're talking about guest co-host situation. We're figuring everything out as we go on. As far as right now, the only place we have to listen, because somebody just asked this, is YouTube. I will work on Spotify and all, right, Leland?
Yeah. I'll be working on that this week, just on other platforms. I know I set up to what was it? Is it Kick? I think Kick. I was looking at that before we shot our first episode. So it's a bunch of other platforms I'm looking at stuff at to have the stuff released on for sure. So we'll definitely, as the links come and we get those certified links from the other platforms, I'll have them all, and we'll be able to share them with the audience and share them with the fans for sure.
Right, and so last week we put out the unedited, but came out fine. In my opinion, I thought we did a great job. Kudos to the team, and the feedback that I got, we got 118 views in a day, and and the feedback that I did get, everybody was either interested in watching the show, or after they watched it, they said we did a good job and that they're gonna continue to watch. So I'm happy with the outcome from the first episode, and ready to get started on the second. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Leland Edmond, co-host here with Jesse and Jack. Glad to be here, episode 2. We appreciate all of the feedback. Definitely people that want to tune in, people that want to come on to the show. We will, all of those inquiries will take on a case-by-case basis and assess, when we will have guests on the show. So definitely glad for any feedback, anything you all want us to talk about. Feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we'll discuss it amongst ourselves and see where we can fit it in for some of the future episodes. So glad to be here.
What's up, Jack Simmons? I was going to say 118 views first episode. That's pretty damn good. I've done a couple other podcasts. Definitely didn't get that, so like nowhere to go but up, and we'll have like our social medias up and running, and because that's all, and you just got to pump it on everything. And I was really happy with how the first episode went. I got a lot of good feedback, my mom said she liked it. That's all that matters, right? So
same. My mom too. She sent it to her hairstylist. She was like, "Tell them to like, share, and subscribe." So it was pretty cool, man.
Happy Father's Day too, by the way.
Right, to all dads. Yeah. But it's I've definitely been appreciating the feedback that we've been getting. My dad came over. He came to see me yesterday when I was watching my daughter, and he was like, "Man, this shit is awesome. I love this. This is cool. It's so cool." Yeah, so yeah, definitely. Thank you all for going on the journey with us, because it's definitely been a journey, and it's going to be a journey to to put all this out for you all in the fashion that we're doing it, and just deep diving into stuff. It's more than just the hour plus you all to see on the cast. It's a bunch of communication that goes into it to try to get you all a great product that we feel Wire fans will appreciate. So.
Well, to get 3 grown people on the same schedule is
Yeah.
I didn't throw it out there last episode. I'm going to throw it out there this episode. This is a spoiler show in the sense that we will reference stuff that happens in the future. We'll say a character dies and stuff. If you're not, because I figure most of the audience is going to be just the Wire lovers that have seen the show already. If this is your first time watching The Wire, I mean, I don't want to tell you not to watch the podcast, but just be aware we're spoiling.
Yeah.
There will be spoilers here. And you must be living on a rock because it's like 25 already.
Right. Yeah.
But I just want to throw it out there, though. This is
No, absolutely. And it's hard to do without spoiling it, honestly, because it's the whole show. It's just everything's so interconnected. It's really just to talk about one episode without mentioning,
Oh yeah,
how the character. It's just like I'm glad that we're doing it this way. Honestly, I
yeah.
think it's much better.
Well, me and Leland first discussed it, and then we told you, and he was like, "Well, I'm glad that's the I'm glad you said that because it changes everything the way I had it planned. Like if we were doing spoiler free, kind of episodes. But yeah, I think like you said, it's just you can't really get a genuine conversation without referencing future stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So Jack, you want to start us off? Episode 2. Oh, what? Season 1, episode 2 was the title.
The title of the episode is The Detail.
And what's the? Anybody know the quote? The beginning quote.
The beginning quote is "You cannot lose if you do not play," said by Daniels. Yeah, said by his wife. Very cynical quote. I always thought, I was like, wow, that's a really pessimistic way to look at life and business in general. Basically it's basically her it kind of goes with the theme of the show. It's basically covering your own ass, right? So that you don't get in trouble. Don't take any risks. Don't try to pull any pieces. And that's what frustrates a lot of people about the police department and politics, and shows that a lot of people in the show, especially Daniels' wife and Daniels at the beginning, are more concerned about climbing the ladder and not pissing off their bosses and about the political aspects rather than doing legitimate police work.
Yeah.
She loves being a real police person. She hates that is more of what he's about versus his aspirations to excel further. It's more so he prefers to work a good case, but like she told him when they kind of split, I fell in love with your ambition. That's kind of it's the reason why I'm here, kind of thing.
And she's a politician too, and there was always that tension. The tension between Daniels and his wife kind of escalates throughout the show, and you could kind of see how she doesn't really respect what he does. I think she doesn't really respect police work. She sees it as a nuisance, and she even questions him in that episode. This is the first episode we're introduced to Daniels' wife, and even though they work well as a couple for a while because they give each other genuinely good career advice, you get that sense that there's that disconnect between him and her, and it kind of goes with the show how the police and the politicians don't really trust or like one another.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, start us off on the show.
All right. Well, we get a cold open, and the first thing we see is the corpse of William Gant, the witness that was killed. Takes us right off, continues right off where the first episode ended, right? Um, and we see that guy, Dr. Frazier. I don't know what you call that. I guess it's like a forensic analyst or whatever his position is. Such a weird, creepy guy throughout the show. I was like, this guy's so creepy, and it works through for what he does. You know, he works
Yeah.
on dead bodies. So I that guy always weirded me out. And this is something.
And
Okay,
he's really tall too, Jack. Like he's a tall guy. Like
yeah, he's goofy looking. He's just like there's something off about that guy. And so they're describing what this guy is, right? And they're saying this guy's basically a loner. And this is a small detail throughout it, but um, there's this element of food in the show that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. I kind of wanted to talk about it later on in this episode. So we see this guy talking about the dead body, and he's eating a yogurt, like right in front of the corpse, and it just shows like how jaded that guy, because that guy, like any one of us, if we're around a dead body, we're not, that would ruin my appetite. I wouldn't be able to
yeah.
eat. But he's just, that's his job, so he doesn't even view it as like disgusting. He's just like, yeah, that's what I do. I don't care. I'm hungry. I'm not, like he's just, I always thought that was such a small
Yeah,
detail, but I felt like it just worked so well with that.
sure. Yeah, that's pretty.
um
And Jack, too, what you just said, they do acknowledge in the beginning that he does live alone. You know, that little nugget we'll get into, the later scene in the show, but they established that from the beginning. Hey, he lives by himself. He don't have no kids. He doesn't have any wife or anything. So we'll touch on that a little later when we get into that, when that comes back up. But they acknowledge that as soon as they tell who he is. Like, he's a loner. He don't live with nobody. He lives by himself.
right, they can't even find like any records on him. And so Bunk and McNulty are there, and Bunk is basically like, "Oh fuck, what am I supposed to do with this?" And he's saying like maybe he's trying to like put it off, like, "Hey, maybe it was a different dispute." He doesn't want the idea of this guy was killed as a witness. McNulty is somewhat giddy about that because he's like, "Oh, this is a perfect opening to put some fire under the majors to like put actual effort into this case. If there's a dead witness, they have to investigate it. There's
Mm-hmm.
no other option because that's like a level of corruption that's just insane. You can't, the guy, if someone's killed for testifying, that basically that makes everyone panic essentially. And so Bunk is like, "Hey, Jimmy, you're not gonna do what I think you're gonna do," and he kind of now Jimmy has that reputation of like he's not really loyal to anyone, and Bunk just worries that, oh shit, this is what's gonna like this is opening up a can of worms,
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of panics, and then we get the theme song, and that's the first scene.
But that's why I love McNulty. It's because, like, yo, I mean, why isn't it a serious thing that a witness went down?
Right.
People should be concerned about this, and it's because you kind of want to throw it under the rug because you don't want to make a big deal about it because you don't want like the judge coming down on you, the press making it a big deal. But it is a big deal, and I mean, if somebody's out there killing tax-paying citizens, this should be a number one concern. Jimmy's 100% right on this thing.
Yep. And he says too, I took this note. It sends a message. They beat the case and they still killed the witness.
Yeah.
Like, so it just shows the level of.
Doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It shows the level of just viciousness that we're dealing with in terms of what the Avon crew expects in terms of how they have a hold on the projects, on the city. It's like, look, we rule by fear. If you testify, there's a good chance we might have you eliminated.
Sure, and that's
whether we beat the case or not.
And now nobody's gonna want to testify.
Exactly.
Sorry, what are you saying, Jesse?
No, I said that shows up later on too, like when they do Brendan like that,
Mm-hmm.
I think like being the Wire fans, like we're kind of like Barksdale like fans because we just see how ruthless Marlowe is, but the Barksdale crew was pretty ruthless. If you're weird like that and you're killing you're killing innocent people. These guys don't really have the code that Omar does. So
Mm-hmm.
when we
That's what the mafia used to do, like back in the day. That's it's a level of like power and dominance to show like, don't fuck with us. Even if you try to do your civic duty, we'll still kill you.
And
right,
you know what, too, Jesse? It's funny you say that about drawing the parallels with the Marlo crew and the Avon crew. So a lot of people still are like, yeah, I hate Marlo. He was so ruthless. But Avon and Stringer were just as ruthless, like kind of thing.
yeah,
They weren't less ruthless. They just weren't putting the bodies in abandoned houses, but they had their fair share of bodies too. Like,
yeah. Well, we'll forget. Yeah, we forget that, right? I mean, what's any difference between William Gant getting put down? Well, I guess because he testified, and that lady that Chris shot. I mean that's real ruthless, but they're still citizens, though. They're
I
both.
guess if she's a lady, I guess that hadn't testified yet. Maybe. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
just doing
but
her job, like that's one of the coldest scenes from
yeah,
Chris. Like, man, come on now. It had to
yeah.
be this lady. It had to be the lady, the delivery lady. Like, damn.
Oh that was so so nonchalant the way he did that, without a
Yeah,
second thought. Just killed her like it was nothing to them. That showed yeah, that was like almost just scary to watch. Like, fuck.
When we get into the Marlowe crew, I think it's another level of like, okay, we're
social.
assessing not just Marlowe, but his hitmen were. Those are two of the most ruthless villains I think in TV history. Like those are, they were menacing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's going to be an interesting breakdown as we get into the Marlowe crew. But go ahead, Jack.
I definitely, and I just wanted to say there's a small. I'm very into like the way things are shot and everything. So the first shot of him is from like the perspective almost of the corpse, and you just see McNulty just looking at it. And it's very like symmetrical. I don't. There's something about it where it's like you just see both the hospital people and the police force, and it's very much like a great. Like every shot is so specific, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But okay, so then the theme song goes, and we get to the quote, which we discussed, and so then the scene is Daniels and the new detail going into the courthouse, and you think like, oh, okay, they got some kind of nice office that they're being given. It's like a very regal courthouse, and they just go into this fucking shithole. It's like a boiler room. It's this disgusting dingy basement. The lighting is great. It's so like dim lighting, it's shot from like a handheld camera. It just shows it's like a gross, disgusting place that they're given to work this case. And he realizes like, wow, they really don't want us to do anything. It's very insulting to him. He's like,
Yep.
this is what they gave us to work with.
And the lights don't work either. Like when they
Lights
flip
don't
the
work.
lights, when they get into their little section, the lights don't even work. When
Just
they
like
try to flip the
water
lights
dripping from the ceiling. Yeah. And the phone, but the phone rings. That's what they say. It's like, hey, at least that still works. And it's funny too, because what's his face?
Sandy.
Santangelo picks it up, hangs it up, and he's like, "Oh, it's for McNulty," and they all
Everybody
crack up.
laughing. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
They hate, it shows like they're pissed off at Jimmy. He's the reason why they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then we get to Judge Phelan talking to McNulty. McNulty's really pissed off because Phelan kind of threw him under the bus. Really, he got him in trouble with his bosses. He's kind of in the shit house now. And McNulty explains, "Hey, the witness was killed," and this is what I love. That Jimmy's playing, like everyone says it now, that he's playing 4D chess, right? So he's like, "Why don't you tell the deputy ops that the witness was killed? That way, that sets a fire." Like he's setting the whole thing in motion. He knows he's gonna have this like chain of events.
And the judge kind of talks back to Jimmy too, right? He's like, "Come on, Jimmy, what did you expect was going to happen when you told me?"
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he's, yeah, but you didn't have to throw me under the bus, right? Okay.
And I got a question for you two too. So Jimmy says, yeah, don't put it in the paper because it's going to tip off Avon that somebody's working him. but the story made it to the paper. So did that not? They never kind of touched on, I guess, the after effect of how the Avon crew viewed the story in the paper. You get what I'm saying? Like Jimmy mentioned that to him, and then the story ends up making it to the paper, but they don't show like a sense of Avon and crew acknowledging like, oh shit, we're in the paper. They kind of,
and for how detailed the wire is, that is something that they didn't do. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't it happen like after D'Angelo is picked up later on the episode, right? That's like, oh fuck. Because I think they realize like all the cops show up in that episode, right? So they know like, okay, we're being looked at, but they don't really know exactly for what.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They kind of, because in the first episode they think like nobody suspects anything about us. They don't, like, none of the cops know who these people are even. And then because of D'Angelo's actions, really, that that puts added pressure on the organization. And so he's kind of the fault. Yeah, it's true. They don't really think like, they kind of like don't really address that later, So.
But like you said though, in the first episode, they don't know anybody's on team except Stringer. He acknowledges like, hey, look, the cop that was on the case last year was in court today.
Yeah.
And then when they walk D'Angelo off, Stringer pulls up, and I don't know if I'm sure he's looking and he can tell like, hey, that's McNulty, like kind of thing. Like he just looks and they don't see like what he says afterwards. We don't get a reaction, but we just see him watching McNulty and Bunk, walk D'Angelo to the car. I guess that's the crew acknowledging like, hey, look, we see they're kind of onto us a little bit, maybe. So maybe it didn't need to be said, kind of thing, because Stringer saw.
That's a good thing that you mentioned. I never actually thought about that. How it's like they don't acknowledge like, hey, this is in the newspaper now, on the front page too. Yeah,
right.
Because they do have that conversation in the first episode in the strip club when Stringer says to Avon like, hey, that cop is in the courthouse, and Avon's like, who? And he's like, there is a prior year's case that they were investigating. That's how Stringer and McNulty know each other. That's how he immediately recognizes him. And so like that, because that is the thing of like, how does he know who he is? And then they kind of go into that later. Okay, so then the next scene, we go back to the detail in the dungeon, and Jimmy walks in, and everyone's just grilling him. They're just so angry at him. He doesn't care. That's what's great. He doesn't even like. He's like, whatever. He just goes to his desk, and everyone's pissed off. Daniels calls him in there and says like, have a seat. And his chair is just like this small little chair. Like he has got nothing in his office. And he's basically saying like, hey, like I need to know that you're not going to screw me over here. Like we're all on the same team. Don't do anything without me knowing. Don't no surprises. Like keep me in the loop. And you think they're going to get into this big conversation, but then we hear a gunfire in the office. And that's when we're introduced to our wonderful Officer Prezboluski.
You know what's funny, Jack and Jesse? Just as I'm rewatching the show with you all for the billionth time, I never really acknowledged how much of a menace that Prezboluski was until I went back and I looked at my notes for this episode, and I was like, wait a minute. This is how we're introduced to him? Like he was, and I'll touch on some of the other stuff as we get to the breakdown, but like he was a demon in the first introduction to him. Like you shot in the office? That's how we're introduced to you? Like
he's repulsive, yeah.
Gun pop. Gun pop. No.
Yeah, exactly. He's such an asshole, and it's like he accidentally fires his gun because he was trying to show his trigger finger, and then a really funny moment happens when Daniels is like, "What happened, Greg's?" And he's like, "Officer Prezboluski shot the wall." They're like, why?
And Greg's didn't flinch when the gunshot went off either.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
think I
reading
ever caught
paper.
that. Everybody else, like McNulty jumped, Daniels jumped, Kim was reading her paper, and she was like, okay, yeah. Yeah, you know, she didn't even flinch. Like,
Yeah, he's like, why did he do that? And she's like, why did you shoot the wall, Officer Prezboluski? Just she's like, this fucking idiot. This is, and you're right. He's such an asshole. He doesn't even really. He doesn't apologize. He's like, all right, what's the big deal? Who cares?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a menace. No, he's a
Yeah.
menace. We'll touch on that before we finish when we get through the whole episode. But I got a little note on that. Like, you know, he was a menace. No, he was
I'm
a
with
menace.
you. I can't stand him this episode.
Yeah. And everyone's laughing at it. Like everyone just immediately is like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Such like an interesting character. Side note, was based on a real cop apparently that David Simon
That's
knew.
true. You're right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I believe it.
Who like became a teacher after, failing as a cop,
The same pattern also. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that are like based on real people, like
For sure.
Omar,
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people don't know that either. They don't think Omar is a real person. He's still alive, actually, and he's actually in the Wire.
He's based on three. I think Omar's based on three different people, but the main guy that Omar's based on is still alive.
Yeah. He's in the Wire. Actually, he's in season 4, season 3 and season 4.
Yeah.
Well, season
That's
4,
right.
season
Yeah.
5.
He's
the
the guy.
Show up.
He protects Omar. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the real, like him jumping out the window. That really happened.
Not only did it really happen, it was from a larger. And they said that was too unrealistic, so they made that.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that my last rewatch before doing it with you all, that was I be having to justify why I rewatch it so much. That was my reason last time when I found out that Omar was a real person. Like, oh, gotta rewatch. I gotta go back in and rewatch. You know, that's my reason, my justification.
And I forgot about that, Jesse, that he's actually in the show, like in season 3. Just kind of the way that the real Landsman is in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I love Landsman, by the way. We'll get to his character.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so the next scene, like he's like, "What's your name, Officer Prezboluski?" And immediately Daniels doesn't like him, and then we go back to the terrace, and they're eating McNuggets. And again, I don't know why, like for some reason, really food just stuck out as like a big theme throughout this episode and throughout the show. But Wallace is eating the McNuggets. McNuggets are whatever, they're fine. Nobody would describe it as like a delicacy, but he's like, oh, these are so good. Like these are amazing. And it's like they're so used to just not having anything that chicken McNuggets is like they really appreciate this basics on it.
Good with the hot sauce too.
Yeah, you gotta try with the hot sauce.
I don't know if it's that also just remember when you're a kid and McDonald's was like the biggest thing? Like nowadays my son has McDonald's whenever there's McDonald's down the block. But when we were a kid it was such a big deal. And I used to love McNuggets. So I don't know if it was like just a poverty thing or just an age thing. Like kids.
That's true.
McDonald's is a big deal to him. I love this McNugget conversation of D'Angelo kind of telling him like, hey, do you think the guy who made this is rich? He's just a working man and the corporate guy is kind of this. And, we kind of get the sense that D'Angelo is their teacher, their leader. And, I like that conversation because it could be said for corporate America, right? All this stuff is like D'Angelo's a working man that's telling the other people, hey, we're just bums on the bus, right? And this is why D'Angelo's one of my favorite conversations is because of these scenes of when he's teaching these kids stuff like the game,
Mm-hmm. And he realizes we're just pawns in the, that's when we get to the chess scene in a later episode. But what also stood out to me was like the contrast, because D'Angelo is very, even at a young age, D'Angelo is very cynical and jaded. And you're right, Wallace, Poot, Bodie, they're just kids. They have this like, Wallace especially has this like childlike innocence
Yeah.
and like sense of wonder, and he's wondering, wow, the guy who created those McNuggets, he must be rich, you know. He has this like hopeful, youthful optimism about him, and it's like contrasted with like D'Angelo is just very sort of cynical, and he's like, "Are you kidding me? That guy just got screwed over by the man on top."
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of I feel like Wallace kind of like reminded D'Angelo that like not everything is just complete shit. Like, you know, there Wallace kind of taught D'Angelo to have sort of hope again
No,
Uh,
for sure,
throughout the show.
for sure, for sure, for sure. And then also too, Jack. Just a foreshadowing moment when Daniels is talking to Perlman about Prez. We talking about Prez. There is a foreshadowing scene where they're flirting,
mm,
you know, kind of thing. Like when he turns his back, she's kind of looking at him up and down. And then when he turns around, you know, he doesn't see that, but we see it as the audience. And then he says, you know, Rhonda, darling, you know,
Yeah.
that's episode 2. And they end up coming together 2 seasons later. Like,
yeah. So
so was that planned from the beginning? Like, you know, it's stuff like that where I'm
I,
like,
I
did they
think
plan all of this or what? Like,
it was because there's so much detailed stuff that comes to visit later on that you're like, this had to be planned. It's great. I mean,
Yeah.
the the writing on The Wire is the best writing in television ever.
I think so. I think so. I'm
Same.
standing on that. If Breaking Bad didn't have that one fly episode, I'd probably be willing to put it, you know, right there neck and neck with The Wire. It's close, but I think The Wire didn't have any bad episodes. And I think for Breaking Bad fans, that one episode they look at is like, hey, this is one of the worst episodes in TV
Yeah,
I've ever seen. You don't have any of that with The Wire. And from Game of Thrones people that like try to compare, I heard the finale in the last season wasn't as good, you
yeah,
know. So
Just watched it without the finale. That's what I
yeah,
said.
you know, like so I
Pretend it didn't happen.
yeah, when I'm talking like best shows of all time, I can stand on why I view The Wire that way. And the finale finishes strong.
yeah,
Every episode is strong. There are no weak episodes that you can look to and be like, yeah, we didn't need that. You know, so I can always make a case why, to me, I think it's the best show of all time. You know?
yeah.
And also, yeah, it's always stuff to like. I never, sorry, you guys brought up a great point about like how everything gets foreshadowed. How in the last episode or in this episode, Stringer, and we'll get to it later, is like flirting with D'Angelo's girlfriend,
Right.
and you know, and it just immediately foreshadows everything.
Yep.
It's like the dude planned it from the get go, and
Right.
Breaking Bad or The Sopranos are a great comparison because I feel like those shows, they knew where they were going from the first episode. Where
Mm-hmm.
certain other shows, like Lost, for instance, you could tell they were just like kind of making it up as they go along,
Yeah.
and you know, it kind of just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. But I think there's always a plan. Like there's like he's gonna wind up here, he starts here, you know what I mean? So it's very like, and it's able to map it out in a more cohesive manner.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the next scene, Daniels and Perlman. Perlman's eating sushi. I promise I'll shut up about that afterwards, but about food. But I always thought that again, that was such a small detail. She's eating sushi, which compared to, you know, she's like the stately lawyer compared to them eating McNuggets. Just shows a contrast. And she's barely even, she doesn't care. Like Wallace is like cherishing these McNuggets, where she's just like, whatever, it's fucking sushi. Like
Right.
she doesn't appreciate the same way. Uh,
Ah,
Good
good.
catch. Wow. Great contrast. Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good one.
and so Daniels and Perlman are talking, and here's the thing: I didn't realize how much I'm in the minority about this. I fucking hate Perlman. I hate her. This is one of the most unlikable characters on the whole show.
I'm pretty indifferent towards her. Yeah.
The thing about her, right, is like Daniels and Perlman start off, they're relatively the same, right? Because they're both ladder climbers. All they
Mhm.
care about is rising the ranks of their positions. Um, you know, but Daniel's his arc is he learns to actually care about the case. He doesn't care as much about pissing off his bosses. He's reminded based on McNulty and Greg's and also just the Barksdale case of why he joined the police force to begin with. That's how he transforms as a character. Whereas Perlman doesn't sort of have that arc. She's still just ambitious in her career at the cost of everything else. And she's only called out one time for it, and it happens in season 1, and we'll get to it on that episode. But McNulty basically says to her, he's like, people like you are the problem. Because people are like you, all they care about is rising the ranks, and that's why no progress ever gets done. And it needed to be said from McNulty because he has no filter. He doesn't care about offending anyone.
Nope.
And so that was great. But yeah, this is kind of the sorry, what are you saying?
She saves McNulty in season 5, though.
She does, you know. She's not awful. She's just like, I don't know. She annoyed me.
Because when Daniels was ready to throw McNulty under the bus, she threw something out there to the governor that kind of like saved McNulty without like straight out saying, "Hey, we have to save McNulty." She kind of said, "Oh, the collapse the case we have on the drug dealers will collapse also." Like and throw it out there, and then made the governor double think. So
That's true.
She saved McNulty in that scene. Yeah. And if you see that, and if you watch that scene again, you can see Daniels kind of give her an eye too. But that that's much further. But I'm just saying on the reason why Perlman redeemed herself to me in the later episodes.
That's fair. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, she does save him from going to jail, so she really did save his ass. That scene, Daniels is basically telling Perlman like, "Hey, I don't want to piss off my bosses, but we need better manpower because I'm just giving these incompetent cops who are either like old or alcoholics or just like useless."
Yeah,
so we need like real cops in this. Okay, so the next scene is Greg's Herc and Carver on the rooftops, right?
So there's something I noticed about here, which is
I had something too. Go ahead, Jesse.
Now it's going to bring out the guy in me. Kima's butt is looking fine. And,
true.
And and it's funny because Carver's looking at it too, right?
Yeah.
And then you could tell, like, he's like, "Hey, Kima, when did you like woman?" And I said, I knew he was looking at her butt.
What I was going to point out, I'm going to point out the rooftop stuff too. But before they flash to them on the roof, the kid playing the drums is the kid that loses his eye too. I don't know if
shit.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, the kid that's playing the drums is the one who Prezboluski crashes out on later. Like so. And then another thing too, Herc and Carver were terrible on the roof. They were making so much noise when Kim was trying to creep and not be seen. Like they're yelling, they're talking. Herc ran into a nail. He's screaming. Like they were terrible on the roof in terms of trying to be inconspicuous. Like,
and then this is when we get introduced to Bubbles doing the thing, right?
The hat trick,
yeah. Which we have the picture for. If Leland put that up on another episode, with me getting marked by Bubbles. Or maybe we could put that up this episode.
Maybe I use that as our picture. That might be kind of cool.
Oh, that'd be great. Everyone wearing the red hat.
I got a question too about Bubs and the hat thing. How does nobody know Bubbles is a snitch?
I don't think really that out there that he's an informant. He's just a junkie.
Right. They don't really think much of him.
He's more junkie like, first. Right. Yeah.
They don't. That's why he's the perfect informant because they just. They view him as like
when I'm sorry to cut you off. When Omar's taking out the place, they show him They show him notice Bubbles, Kima, and McNulty, and that's when Omar puts it together. So Omar's not known from before.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
it's just that he says to them, your snitch can handle that. Bubbles knows Bird. So it's almost like he knew maybe.
No, but show him during the stakeout when Omar's
when they're staking out the place.
Bubbles talks to Kima and McNulty, and Omar says, "What do we have here?" It's on
right.
Yeah. So
I knew he knew. I just meant like the general consensus around the neighborhood. I guess you wouldn't
I think
necessarily know that. I'm curious. I was just curious about that. Like,
I think they just view him as a
just a
junkie.
junkie. He's just a junkie.
I think Jesse's right on the money with that because it's like that's why he's the perfect person to do this hat trick because they 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 actually like I think in a way they like Bubbles. They're able to, they're having fun with him when he has the hat trick thing that he does, and it's like you could see like they're like goofing around. He's like, "What do you have in the bag, Bubbles?" They're just like, "What is this bullshit? What are you up to now, you knucklehead?" And like that's the thing. He's like perfect for that role.
You know what? You know what would have been hysterical? What if one of them was like, "I'll buy a hat." All right,
Yeah.
bro.
I know what you're gonna do. Right.
Fuck, I didn't think about this. That's true. Like, yeah, he didn't expect that to happen. But also, it shows like he's like a better cop than Herc and Carver. I thought like he's
That's true.
more creative than
Yeah.
them. That's something like impressive to pull off as just a random informant rather than an actual police officer.
Well, and it's also showing us who the players are. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
people with the red hat are the big players. So now, as a viewer, we're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay."
Mhm.
So it's
And
a way of introducing it to us too.
if you catch it too when he's putting on the hats, I've like I said, never looked at it from this perspective. He puts the red hat on Bodie, and then I think Pooh or Wallace get a gray hat, or is it a black hat? It's not a red hat, but they get a.
Why Bodie did get a red hat? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean he does. He other than D'Angelo, he is the one in charge of the courtyard. The pit. He's I won't say just as respected as D'Angelo, but he's like that's his little territory from the Barksdale crew.
Mhm.
He's responsible for it, and D'Angelo is to oversee it. But Bodie, he's got some. He's important. He's a lieutenant, for the pit. So.
Yeah, and yeah, it shows he puts the red hats on like Weebay, Bird, Stinkum. And one cool thing about the way it was shot too is you get from the perspective of the camera, and as Greg's is flashing the camera, it freeze frames on each of them. It
Mm-hmm.
goes to white, and there's like an episode of that in The Sopranos when the FBI agent's taking photos, and it's just to show to the viewer, hey, this is the guy, this is this
That's what we're
person,
looking at.
right? And that comes up later. And then at the same time, McNulty and Bunk visit the courtyard. And the people right away know, that they're the police.
Yep, I had that. Shut it down. I have
Yeah.
that. They identify it early. Shut it down. Shut the operation down. Cops are scrolling through.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, just what did you say your name was? I didn't say shit. Just shoot shit.
oh yeah, he's so smooth. You know what I mean? He's able. He does. They don't flinch. Like D'Angelo and Bodie from both sides. They're both like very much. D'Angelo and Bodie are like we're not saying anything.
Yeah.
And McNulty and Bunk are even still able to like tease them while they're doing. And they have one thing that's great about why they make such a great pair. They're able to like bounce off each other. You know what I mean? They know they have a rhythm.
I'm glad you said that. Because he said, "Here, Bunk. Here's a vial for your thoughts."
Yeah.
So it's like that little nugget right there is like. There's so many drugs around the area. It's like it's just a vial sitting on the floor. Nothing crazy. Here you go, Bunk. And then he says to D'Angelo, he was like, "If you're gonna arrest me, go ahead and arrest me." And then they're like, "Do you want to go to jail?" And D'Angelo's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, shut the fuck up your damn self." Like they were talking crazy to him. And Bodie says this is another just a corrupt moment. He says, "Hey, you Western narcos come around and you plant this stuff on us all the time." So The Wire doesn't really touch on corrupt cops so much. Like we don't really see a lot of police corruption outside of McNulty season 5 serial killer stuff, but like we don't really see a lot of dirty cops, like cops taking money or planting evidence, and that is very prevalent in Baltimore. I don't know now, but I know for a few years, in the preceding decades, that case I was telling you all about last time, the gun trace task force case, they were relentless for planting evidence on people. We don't really see it a lot in The Wire, but it's a thing that they do. They'll plant evidence on somebody and take you in to get the stats and it's a real thing.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So and I like McNulty's whole speech here. Let's get it on one thing straight. Homicide. I don't give a fuck about the drugs. We're here about the bodies. And you could kind of see it hits D'Angelo, but not Bodie. Bodie's kind of detained. Bodie has the mentality of, if he's a witness and he's ratting on us, then he should be killed, right? Bodie already has that mentality, and D'Angelo's kind of like, damn, he shouldn't have.
Yeah, he gives a great look of like, dude, would you shut up? Like, you can't say that to the cops.
Yeah.
It's like a small look. He's like, what are you doing? Well, he says that.
And then McNulty, and then they arrest D'Angelo for no reason, which is
no warrant,
no charge. And I'm like, well, why are they? Yeah, it was weird. That was.
You see, it makes sense why they arrested him rather than Avon and Stringer, right? Because we touched on last episode how D'Angelo was young. So they're like, well, this guy we can squeeze more out of him. Avon and Marlowe, Avon and Stringer, they wouldn't be able to pull that shit. They'd be like, if you don't have a charge, get out. D'Angelo is just like a kid, so they're figuring like, all right,
they literally walked him to the car, no charge and no warrant, nothing like.
How do you explain the paperwork of handcuffing somebody and bringing him in with no charge?
It's an interrogation. Why is that? That's just one of those moments where they think like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna slide it in there, and we won't, we won't act like this is not normal because they didn't have a warrant, a charge. He could have walked out anytime. Like, for somebody that knows the law, you wouldn't. I'm not volunteering. No charge on me. I'm not getting in the car with you. Why would I? Why should I?
I want to interview a Baltimore cop, man. A Baltimore cop. If you're a Baltimore cop Wire fan, reach out to us, man.
Yeah. I like the fact because it's just like they don't really have anything to go on at that point, so they're just like, let's try to interrogate him. Let's see what we can do. I think also they know like we can get more out of this kid than we can.
I get all that. That's definitely the reason why they bring him in. But I'm just legally they had no reason.
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
Like it makes no sense. Like, oh, we're handcuffing you for what? Like your hand.
Know your rights.
Yeah, false arrest. Right? Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. D'Angelo, you'd think would know, like, hey, they can't fucking do this. I also think it might, like, he doesn't really know that much. You'd figure you'd know that. So then the next scene, right, is a great little moment because, like, Greg's is taking photos. Herc and Carver are just like, hey, what are you doing? Ugh. And she's like, would you guys shut up? And then she leaves and she tells Carver to take the photos. And Herc is like complaining. He's like, I don't see any stripes on her. All she's doing is telling me what to do. And Carver is the one who's like, yo, would you shut up and try and take the photos?
I'm trying to work. Yep. I took that note down too. Yep. I did.
Foreshadows the difference between them. Like they start the same way. Herc never changes. Carver kind of matures, but it shows also how they view themselves. They can tell that like the other cops don't really respect them right off the bat, because they don't really deserve to be respected. That's what the thing that was funny to me about the two characters. They always complain about how nobody treats them with respect, but they don't do anything
that warrants the respect.
Right. They constantly screw up and they don't really know what they're doing. So like nobody trusts them. And it makes total sense, but they have such egos that they're like, they should respect me. I got stripes, and it never made sense. But we'll get into them later on because that's an important scene. So then the next scene, Daniels is talking to the other lieutenant, and he's like, they gave me Prezboluski. Why, we hate that. And he talks about all the dumb stuff Prezbo has done. He's like the laughing stock of the police department.
And the other lieutenant says he's Valchek's son-in-law.
Right.
He gives us that, like, that's how he can get away with all this stuff. He's kin to, Valchek. So
yeah.
Nepo, baby.
Yeah.
Is it nepotism if they're not related? I don't know what the exact term. It's one of it's like
favoritism.
Yeah. No, it is nepotism. I just wonder if that also is like yeah, no, it's just like he gets nepotism, and because he's related to Valchek, and and so he's like, well, can you at least get me Sidner?
Mm-hmm.
And I like Sidner as a character.
Love
He's
that.
cool.
Yeah, he's
He's
very
so
chill.
underrated.
He loves it. Yeah. Also, too, a little nugget is when he mentions Lester Freeman, and it's like, man, this he ain't nothing. He's just a little house cat. You know, he ain't really. He's probably single handedly the most important detective in the whole show, like kind of thing. Like probably when it comes to solving these cases, like it's probably him. I have to sit and assess him versus McNulty. You know, who's the most valuable cop, if you will. But Lester is like he's so much more than just a cop. So that little nugget where Daniel's like, I mean,
Yeah.
he's not even worth nothing, kind of thing. You know, is another foreshadowing moment to like he's single handedly probably the smartest person in the whole thing. Like kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't really suspect much when you first see him.
right.
He's like he's not old, he's middle aged, right? But he kind of he's not like a big guy or anything. He's just
Mm-hmm.
like, who is this guy? And then later on, we see who he is. Another detail I noticed when Daniel's in the you see that he's being looked at on a security camera by Burrell. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that's like, oh, okay, it's kind of showing like, hey, he's constantly being watched. Everything he does is being monitored by them on multiple levels. We see Burrell and talking to Rawls and that other major whose name is escaping me. I'll
I know
figure
you're
it out.
talking about
The short
Connor.
guy.
Yeah, is it Foster? Foster?
Forster, yeah.
Yeah. I love him too. I don't
Yeah,
know, he's an older guy. Like he like being a police. Like I liked him.
he's
He
a
was funny.
crabby old man. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
him
he was
too.
funny. He was funny.
But they're complaining about the dead witness, and it's so crazy because they're not upset that a witness was killed. They're upset that somebody's going behind their back. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's they don't even really care about a witness being killed. They're like, oh great, this is gonna create more work for us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniels comes in and they realize like, hey, he's the one who's like telling the judge all this stuff.
Yep.
And they say Burrell straight up says, let's hope he comes up short. Like that's crazy to be like,
Mm-hmm.
let's hope he fails this case.
Yeah.
It just gives away the game right away, right out, right. So, so that was interesting, and then we get to the detention room, right, interrogation room rather, where McNulty and Bunk have D'Angelo there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Daniel shows up. He's angry at McNulty, and he's like he doesn't really trust him. He's angry that he picked him up without telling Daniels, and he says like, we could have done this together. I told you to keep me in the loop. And McNulty says straight, he's like, well, I don't really know who you are yet, so you got to prove yourself. Which is kind of a crazy thing to say to your boss. It's
Yeah.
like actually he doesn't have to do
Yeah.
anything. What are you
It's like what?
Yeah,
Who do you think you are telling me how to explain this detail?
yeah.
What? What?
It
You
just
don't get to
shows
make
like
these decisions. Like it's not on. It's not even in your job title to even be telling me, "Hey, this is how this case gonna go." That's
yeah.
wow, Lieutenant. You're not like it's. I don't know. He's one of the boldest characters I think I've ever seen. Like on screen. Like
Uh,
he has no filter whatsoever. Never, ever, ever, never, ever.
yeah. I was a concierge at a building, and I could just picture like, and they were like, one like during COVID and stuff, they were like, Jesse, can you call these people for like their rents? And I was like, it's not in my job description, but imagine me telling the owner of the building, no, this is not on me. You got to prove.
Yeah, like what the fuck? I'm your boss. Who do you think you are talking to me this way? Uh, that was always to me. I was like, what? It just shows. Yeah, he's so just bold, and he
Bold
doesn't
and
care
brave.
about rank.
Like, yeah, Daniels has to prove it. No, I don't.
Like, yeah, I don't have to do anything actually. You have to do what I say. You work for me. Uh,
He's a trip, man. McNulty is. Man, he could be studied. His actions in the wire could be studied, man. That man is a next level thinker mind person. Like he's just man, he's on another level. He on another level.
Because even the next scene, he says like, "All right, well, if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna send Gregson there," and he straight up just says right in front of her, he's like, "We don't need her." Like no, like such a rude thing to say to the person that you're about. It's like we have a great thing. Like we don't want her in there, and it's like fuck you. Like why would you say that right away? So they, they go and interrogate him, and again, they work so well off each other because they immediately just tell D'Angelo, it's like, hey, why did you kill this witness? Like, we don't care about drugs or losing a case. There's no point to doing any of this. Like, we don't take it personally. Why, you already beat the case, so why even do this in the first place?
And Jack, to touch on that scene before they went in, Kima letting them know, like, when Mendoza was like, well, hey, at least you could do is run these tags for me. She was like, well, I did that already. Here you go. It's in the file. Like, get out of my face. I'm not just somebody you could just, run over or walk over. Like, I'm in this too with you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, what do you think you're the only cop here that knows what they're doing?
So she was establishing, like, hey, I'm locked into this case too.
And his kids' pictures and said this is
that was the nugget from earlier that I was talking about. And when they say he lives alone, I don't know if as the audience, first time watching it or however many times you watched it, if you even draw all the way back to the first scene where they say he lives by himself.
I didn't. The first time I watched it, I totally did not pick up on that.
So it's like, unless you can remember the first opening scene, as many times as we've watched it, you probably still won't remember that he said in the beginning, hey, well, he don't have no kids. He lives by himself. So and it just shows that Bunk and McNulty will pull some tricky schemes to get information out of people, whether it's lies or not. We're going to work off each other to do what we have to do to get them to say what we want them to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead. There you go.
No, I was going to say, the whole, he works at church, but the beginning is a little, if you do pay attention, it's a little hint to the viewers. So now you're in on Bunk and McNulty working them, you put up, you're like, oh, I'm in the loop now,
Yeah, it's true because wait a second, because it's great too because they come up with this story of like, oh, he's a church going single father who volunteers at a soup kitchen, which is like it's great because it's like a total cliche that they came up with, and it works. So, and it's like on a shittier cop show that would be the story, right? They would have that be, and it's almost like they're making fun of those kind of overused tropes. Like in reality is often more complicated. In reality, there's not much we can do with this because this guy is just like some loner who didn't have anyone in his life.
And then I guess D'Angelo's tearing up, and
let's touch on it. Go ahead, Jesse. Spit it out. Go ahead.
I don't buy D'Angelo saying I'll write a letter. He's been 8 months in jail. This is where I think D'Angelo is not the best written character. Because it doesn't make sense to me. Like he knows, like the way we're introduced to D'Angelo feels like he's just getting introduced to the game himself. But as a few years in it, he was responsible for the high risers, which is bigger than the pit. So he promotion already. It should be cemented in his head. You don't talk to police. You don't do nothing. You don't write letters. And then we get the conversation with him, Avon telling him this later, but it feels like they just came to my house and they were like, hey, Jesse, you want to go run the pit? Oh, and then I'm going to introduce you to everything in the game. Like D'Angelo's not, I don't know. He's not that.
I want to touch on that too. A few things just from that scene. So for one, if you're Avon's nephew, for a fact, I don't have to go with you all if I'm not charged. Like, that as just his nephew or just working under his organization, You can't take me in without a charge. Like I know this and I need a lawyer. I want a lawyer. He would know that. He would also know to never write a letter.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you just you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't put the organization at risk at all to even put the crew in within arm's reach of being responsible for the murder. Like you wouldn't even do that. And when Levy arrives, you're on their payroll. There is no way that you would slap Avon's nephew in the back of the head.
Yeah. And
Oh
I
yeah.
know that was
No,
improv.
no, I
way.
okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jack.
I,
We could.
I don't want to sound like a wire kiss ass because I think that's what some people might say. But
I,
with Levy, well, with D'Angelo, right? This scene is so pivotal to his character
Right.
because McNulty says one of the most brutal lines in the show, which I think really gets under his skin. And it's like even the camera zooms in on when he's saying this. He's like, "This is what I don't understand. Like everything else gets sold without people killing each other." He's like, why can't you guys just act the same way? And I think what it shows D'Angelo is like, listen, McNulty really doesn't care about drugs.
Mhm.
Drugs are an inevitability in impoverished cities. They're going to get sold no matter what. At the end of the day, most cops really don't care about
The drugs.
drugs. It's like, whatever. People get high in the projects. Who gives a shit? He's
Mhm.
like, they care about dead bodies. And I think D'Angelo just sees that and like I think that really he sees that McNulty is like not just like trying to he honest I think in a way like that hits home to him. He's like, why can't we just not kill people? Like
Well, and
it's
like
so like
Jesse and I were talking about this. We get the morality of it. Like we get him being compassionate about it. It's just how we're introduced to his character is on he's on trial for murder. He's
mhm.
a literal murderer. Like you literally killed somebody for because you didn't want to fight them and they disrespected you and you had a tiff with them. You ended up killing him in front of witnesses. That's cool, but like you're a murderer.
Yeah, but that guy
So
was the player in the game, right? Whereas Gan is just like a witness.
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I guess. All right, Jack.
We
All
go.
right.
No, no, no. I appreciate that. I think you're right. I get it. I get I'm not trying to.
I, I don't see him writing a letter.
Okay.
The introduction to D'Angelo is not is the least thought out character introduction, I think, because I feel like what they use a lot of D'Angelo for is introducing us to the rules and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
D'Angelo shouldn't be being told rules if he's running a crew.
Right. You know the rules.
He knows the rule. You know not to write a letter to. I can tell you don't write a letter to.
Right.
I'm like, it
Yeah.
doesn't
No, I
make
hear
sense.
what you're saying. It's like it's out of pocket to like write a letter. Don't put anything on paper ever.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then
and it's just
like I said, Levy slapping him in the back of the head. I think that was improvised. I really do.
I love Levy as a character. I mean, because what's great about it,
I just can't see him smacking somebody that you're on their payroll. You can't. You could right smacking my nephew.
but he's also so important to the organization. It's like Levy is like one of the most important. He's like a scumbag lawyer who's
Yeah,
crooked,
sure.
and you
Oh,
want a guy like you don't want a good like a morally decent
you
lawyer.
don't want Perlman. You can say it. Go ahead and say it, Jack. You
Yeah,
don't
you
want
don't want
Perlman.
Perlman. You want Levy, who's just a fucking snake. And this is the first scene we really have of Levy in the show. Besides from like that brief intro, like scene in the first episode, this is the first time we see him, and I love it because he's just walking in to the office, and like McNulty's like, the defense never rests. Like he knows right away, like Levy's pissed off. And he just walks in. And he's like, "What the fuck? Sit down!" And he knows immediately. Like, listen, if you don't have a charge, get up. And I think that slap in the back of that is to show like he's the only person that can get away with it because it's like without Levy, they would all be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
He's that good of a lawyer, and throughout the show, you just learn to hate him more. Um, he never redeems him. But I get what you mean, because it's like that's insane to just like to a gangster to just slap them, especially the king's nephew. Like he could easily be like, "Hey, this lawyer assaulted me," and you
But
know,
I guess from Avon's perspective, like you mentioned, Levy has gotten them out of. He's so dirty and so crooked. He's gotten them out of so much stuff. Avon might look at it like,
he deserves a
well,
good
shit, he
slap.
had right to slap him in the back of the head. What are
Right?
you doing right now? You know,
Yeah.
like, he had the right to slap him in the back of the head. He's trying to keep us out of jail. You're trying to push us. You're trying to let them spin you and potentially get us in jail. Yeah, he probably had right to slap him in the back of the head. He might say something like that, you know.
Yeah, okay. The slap in the head I buy. I still don't buy D'Angelo actually writing the letter.
Writing a letter. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
And I appreciate that too, because that's like, you know, that's a good catch. It's like kind of out of pocket too, you know. Um, and what's great at that scene when he slaps him in the back of the head, D'Angelo kind of looks back at McNulty, and kind of almost that look of like he doesn't want to go, like he's like conflicted in a sense, and McNulty just has that like signature smirk, like he knows his job is done for the day. And like we touched upon the acting, and that's why that actor Dominic West is so perfect, because he just has that like that grin that's like, you know, right away he's setting the chain of events in motion. So then yeah, they explained to Greg's like, hey, this is what we did. We lied about the case. Daniels tells them this is what we're doing. We're have these are the people that are going to be working with each other on the specific tasks. Um, Daniels McNulty explains to Daniels like, this is what we need to do. We need to have like a Title III wiretap. We need like, this is going to require some real manpower. And Daniels kind of like shuts him down and says like, nope, we're going to do a quick buy and bust. And it's like, it kind of shows that's the reason why McNulty doesn't trust Daniels, because
Yeah.
like he comes to him with an idea and he immediately is like, nope, you know. And he's like, well, why did I even talk? Why did I even try talking to you? You know.
Mm-hmm.
The next scene, which I know you guys have a bunch of thoughts on this, so I want to hear your takes on this, is when they go to like this kind of like community organized event, um, showing like the communal aspect of the organization, that they're not
Mm-hmm.
just like a drug crew. It's like they actually do work
In the
for the
community.
people. Yeah, there's families there. They have a lot of food. D'Angelo brings his girlfriend and their kid, and
Mm-hmm.
Avon's like working as a cook, you know, and he comes in, and it shows like the human side of Avon, which
Mm-hmm.
most other shows wouldn't do. They would just make him like a flat out evil character, but he's like,
Yep.
oh, look at my nephew, you know. He's like has that human side to him, you know.
Yeah. And we do want to touch on that, Jack. Jesse pointed this out. How is it in this episode, or just in general, it's almost like D'Angelo's girl has never met his uncle. She's never seen his uncle before this cookout.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
right. It's straight out said. She said
Well,
that.
yeah, you know.
yeah,
And
it's true.
Stringer has never seen the nephew.
Yeah, and Avon's like
Y'all,
a family man. It doesn't make sense.
y'all are in a community setting in the scene. So is this the first time you've ever done this? Like, it's just questions like that where it's like, well, why have you never seen the nephew? Why has your girl never seen your uncle? And Stringer, like you mentioned, Jack, he's literally flirting with Donette,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, he's
and
like,
spinning her around, you know, and foreshadowing to, you know,
hmm
season 2, season 3, when they're actually together.
Well, it's also just like establishes dominance too, because
Yep.
it's just like it's a way to humiliate D'Angelo. Like, imagine just telling somebody, like, imagine telling your friend's girlfriend to do a twirl. Like, it's an insane power move right off the
Nobody
bat.
would ever, ever, ever do that to me with my wife. Okay, that
Right?
would never happen, and I'd be okay with it. Like that would
Yeah,
never.
D'Angelo doesn't say anything.
oh man.
Yeah, it's a crazy power move to just pull, and you're right. It shows how little respect Stringer has for D'Angelo, and you know, foreshadows like, hey, we're not going to get along later on.
No, you guys said my thoughts on it. Yeah.
So okay, so the next scene. By the way, I also wanted to mention that in the previous scene when they're discussing what their plan was in the basement, like there's the electrician who is like, you know, there's that
Love that scene. Who is that hero?
right.
Are y'all from Purchasing?
Y'all from purchase? This is like, this is where they sent them down with. They sent them like in a little basement, and it's like, wow, this is where a police office is working right now. Uh,
I have these moments where, like, I when I'm rewatching, and it's like little scenes like that I want to post in the groups. Like, so when y'all start seeing in the groups little random one-liners, those are just some of my funny moments. You know, like I was literally gonna post about that scene. Like, somebody name this hero. What episode? I was gonna do something. I was gonna post something like that because I love that scene. You know, like, are y'all from Purchasing?
yeah.
Like, no. He's like, oh. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
It's that small little like ridiculous aspect, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, it's he has a reason to believe they could be from purchasing. It's like, why would you be down here if you're in a police unit? Like, this is like a dungeon. What are you doing here? It's like a person. It's like a reasonable thing to ask, honestly. And they kind of laugh because they're like, yeah, why are we down here to begin with?
Yeah. I'm
And
glad you brought it up, Jack, because I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes.
And then there's the next scene is Bubbles is explaining. He's got the what's it, the bulletin board with all the different pictures, the players.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to Kima. McNulty walks in, and there's a great little, very small moment, which I had a few thoughts where he says like Bubbles starts to hesitate, and Greg says like that. Don't worry, he's cool. And it shows like Bubbles is just used to cops abusing him and using him, and you know he's just prepared for that. It also shows Greg's just like starting to trust McNulty as a character. And then finally it shows like McNulty is a good guy. He doesn't view Bubbles as just some junkie. He's like, he wants to hear what he has to say. He's not in there to show power. He just wants to solve a crime, and he's genuinely impressed with the hat trick. He's like, wow, that's pretty cool that you did that. Showing like, hey, there's like this guy actually worked. You know, I also thought it was funny how like, you know, Bubbles is just doing this for cash. Like he gets cash, and they know right away. There's like this guy's just gonna spend it on dope, but they're like, well, what he's gonna buy it no matter what. So fuck
Right.
it, you know. And he gives him like a 20, and she's like, "Are you trying to kill him right now?"
Spoil him.
No, you know, you kind of said it. You know, McNulty. See, the thing about McNulty, he appreciates police work, right? So like, no matter where it's coming from. So like, with Bubbles explains this hat trick, he's like, man, this guy's got some good police work, you know, like whether it's from a junkie or not. Because at the same time, it doesn't, you know, and I just thought about this too, because you brought up the disrespect for Daniels of you got to prove yourself. Meanwhile, he's like, in a way, he's like Bubbles proved himself, but Daniels didn't. Like, you know, junkie proved himself.
Yeah, that's true.
He's doing better police work than the other cops, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's because he has more of a stake too, you know. It's because he's
better
like,
than Polk.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, those guys. They're great. That's the first time we see them in this show. They're just the worst. You know, they're just too incompetent old. They're not like abusive cops, but they're like just as bad or almost as bad because it's like they don't care at all.
Daniel said he didn't feel like he had a designated driver between the two of them.
That was a great line.
Two alcoholic partners that, you know, got through the system, and you know they're dumped into the detail.
They're just biding their time until they can retire. That's all. They're just, you know. Then we cut back to Avon's telling D'Angelo, he's kind of berating him for speaking to the police at all.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, we talked about it. I mean, you know, Avon's telling him, don't write, you shouldn't be writing letters. You shouldn't be concerned with who dies. You know, this is on us. This is not on you. You know, Avon cares for his nephew, but again, just stuff that I thought would D'Angelo should already know, and I feel like D'Angelo's being used to tell us, the game.
what not to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
but also too to kind of just like where his story ended, in season 2, where he was at with his uncle, how he was kind of, I don't even want to be involved with trying to get out of here. Me serving 20 years here is my piece to get away from the game. Who he ended up like, where he ended up landing on as far as his character, all of those moments that we're questioning just kind of leads up to who he ended up being when he died. Like
Yeah.
he didn't die trying to be a gangster or trying to be, this top tier drug dealer. He died looking for peace and looking for a way out, because we saw that Avon got out. Like, he got his sentence cut in half. D'Angelo's would have been, it might only been 10 years, but 10 is better than 20,
Mhm.
That in itself could have cut his time. So he was like, you know what? I don't even want to be a part of it. I'd rather cut my time short, or I'd rather just cut ties with you and just serve my time here, and that's my piece to get away from the game. That it seems like from all the stuff we're questioning, it seems like he was trying to push away from the game from the beginning, outside of the courtroom murder charge that he beat. It seemed like other than that, he was always trying to push the game away.
Yeah.
So
Because it's like, yeah, because like we said last episode, he's like a confused kid, and that's what makes him such a fascinating character. He's like,
Yeah, he's a good character. I just think some of the writing doesn't add up, though.
yeah, I get that, man. Um, so then the next scene, um, is probably the most brutal, the first like real brutal scene in the whole show, right? Because it starts off, Herc, Carver, and Prezboluski are
Mhm.
drinking heavily, and they're pissed off because they don't get to beat people up. Like, that's what it comes down to. They're angry because they're like, what do we gotta stand on these rooftops? I just want to fuck people up. That's their whole, that's how dumb they are as people. And they're legitimately feel like they're being inconvenienced, or it's not fair that they don't get to just like beat the shit out of people. And so they say, like, why don't we just go down to these projects and just just start fucking people up and see what we can get out of this. And then Presbo, who was like kind of made to look like a complete idiot earlier in the show, is like, yeah, I'll go along with them. He wants to like prove himself to these guys, like his new friends. And they go down to the terrace, and they just pull in and they just start hassling people who are really not even doing anything. The guy's just like going out with a laundry bag. He's like, hey, put your hands in the. It's like, who are these people? You don't know these people at all. You're just um like abusing them, and they just yell at these people, and they're like, we're gonna come back, and we're not taking this shit anymore. And the guys, like the people in the towers, they kind of like, all right, fine, whatever, and they let them leave
mm-hmm.
until Presbo sees the kid in the car and pistol whips him immediately. And he says, like, he's like, what, are you gonna bleed on my car? Like, it's so fucking brutal. And it's so like jarring to watch because it's a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Herc and Carver look at that, and they're
Well,
like,
Carver
what?
says, "What the fuck?"
Right.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, because it's like we weren't trying to like commit brutality here. We were just trying to like,
Assault.
yeah, like we weren't trying to assault people. We were just trying to find stuff. And I think what the reason he did that was because I think he was trying to like prove himself, and he's so like he doesn't know what the work of a cop is, so he thinks
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's the way I'm gonna prove myself. It's by pistol whipping this kid. And then they start that's what set the people in the towers off. That's
Yep.
what they start to throw bottles, they throw a TV,
They throw
they
some shots. They started shooting.
yeah, and then they call in for backup. Um so yeah, that was like the first real like part where David Simon's like, this is the kind of show we're gonna have, where
It's
it's
gonna
not
be weird.
just Yeah, it's no. We're not pulling any punches here. We're gonna show like blatant police brutality.
And
Yeah.
this is what I wanted to touch on earlier. I'm not now that we're at this scene. Prez the Menace. I had that in my notes. Prez the
Impressive.
Menace. I had a whole little section for it. So let's just break this down. We're introduced to him. He's letting off a shot in the police officer's office. Okay, in their detail office. That's one. Number two, he pistol whips a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, however old he is. Okay, loses his eyesight. The people are shooting at him. Prez is firing back shots at the residents. Okay. So he lets off a shot in the office, blinds a 15-year-old, and is shooting at the people in the courtyard. This is his first episode. He
Yes.
was a menace. Okay. I'm standing on it. Like he was so out of pocket, like unbelievably.
Oh yeah,
The,
it's good.
no, the whole scene is pretty disturbing to think away that they actually did this before. I mean, before Prez even hits him with the gun. Let's go terrorize the projects drunk. Number one, drinking on the job, but you're intoxicated and you do police work. Um, and you just start fucking with people in the projects, and then the eye scene and the bleeding on my car, just disgusting cops,
It's
man.
disturbing. No, it's a
It's so
disturbing.
dehumanizing. It shows like they don't view them as people.
It's disturbing. Yeah.
It's,
And Carver tells the guy to take his pants down too. Like they really were that scene is really out of pocket for all three of them, really.
yeah, I mean,
Really.
and then the scene kind of shows you why there's why hey, phone cameras and body cams aren't that bad of a thing nowadays.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's true. Like you
but
said, they wanted to humiliate them, which is why they like, hey, put your pants down. You know, it was more of like a dominance kind of
I
thing.
mean, yeah, Press takes the cake, but all three of them are idiots and like just for going down there and all intoxicated and starting shit and picking
Yeah,
on them.
Yeah, you're set up to hate them from the get go. They're
for
kind of
sure.
like the shitty cops that like are assigned to this unit. Kind of a nice contrast to like McNulty and Bunk and Greg's.
Yeah.
Well, and Bunk is not even part of the detail though.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So like yeah. So yeah, like a contrast to, like McNulty and Greg, sort of like the honest cops. Like these guys are like the bad cops. They're just the ones. They're the cops that you read about on the news. They're like, how do
Yep.
these fucking people do this? It's
Yep.
like these are these guys that they exist. They do this stuff all the time.
And like I touched on earlier about the corrupt cops, like in the other show, Herc and Carver are really the only, and that cop from season 4, Officer Walker, who's
Oh God, yeah, he's
we'll
awful.
touch on him at some point in time, but he's my top 3 most hated characters. It's him in the first 3 slots.
I would say he's almost cartoonishly bad, but
Yeah,
then I
no,
saw
it's
but then I saw We Own the City and realized that shit was true.
Yeah,
he is who We Own the City was about. That's what I'm about to touch on too. Other than him, Herc and Carver are the only cops you see that are dirty in The Wire when it comes to like taking money or taking stuff from drug dealers. Herc and Carver, they do it in season 1. I think it's twice. I think it's once. It's once at the end when they raid the stash house. They take some money.
No, they get blamed for it, but they
They get
didn't
blamed
do it.
for it, right? Yeah,
But they didn't do it.
They didn't do it that time. Yeah, but they did it at the end. When they raided the stash house, they took the money. But we never really see that aspect of cops stealing money from drug dealers, other than Herc and Carver, like we're talking about, kind of thing. So that's just another little nugget. Like you said, the cops that we hear about, they are kind of indicative of who those cops are. It is Herc and Carver,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, and an interesting way to introduce like main characters as being so just blatantly corrupt and awful. Okay, so the next scene, we see McNulty answers the phone. This small detail, the first time we see McNulty's apartment, like you're just like, it's a mess. He has a bed in the corner. He's like no furniture, clothes all over the ground. Kind of just showing this is this guy's life, you know. And he's obviously hungover. And Bunk tells him like, look at the paper, and he is like, oh fuck, the dead witness story was leaked to the paper.
Yeah.
He immediately blames the judge, rightfully so. Judge Phelan tells him, he's like, hey, some reporter called, and I was just
Love
telling him.
Yeah.
Nobody
And
takes any accountability.
Rawls was pissed. That's one of the funniest scenes too. He is pissed. He's like, "Where's McNulty?" He's like, "He's detailed." He said, "I fucking know he's detailed, but where is he? I don't care." And then he just knocks his stuff off the desk, and Lance was like, "That's Crutchfield."
Yeah. One of the funniest.
Rawls he's fuming at what's going on. Like you can see him red on screen almost. Like he is fuming at McNulty. He's so mad about it. Like I love that little saying right there because McNulty knew like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
So the classic angry cop.
So a couple of things, right? Number one, the show's dated. If you're watching it for the first time in 2025, obviously you would get a cell phone call. Wouldn't be a newspaper. The message would hit right away. His phone will probably be blowing up with text messages. The news. And I love the judge scene of saying, "Hey, this reporter, man, he put it on me." And it's so parallel to McNulty saying to Ross, "Hey, man, this judge, he fucked me up. He asked me."
Good catch.
Yeah. And now the judge is using a McNulty on McNulty.
Yeah, good catch. Wow.
Hey, this judge got me. This reporter, he got me in the jam. Yeah. I guess this is what Jack said. Passing along no accountability.
Right. No one takes any responsibility. McNulty was just like, God damn it, he has that face. And it's true, like when Rawls throws that shit off the desk and Lansman just says that's Crutchfield, he's like, oh, and he just walks away. Like he doesn't even like pick it up afterwards.
Yeah.
And Lansman's just cracking up because he knows like, he's fucked, He says like if he's caught with his dick in the wife of the deputy's ass, he's still gonna have more of a career than if they find out he's behind that story.
Love that scene, love that line.
Oh yeah, that's great. And then, so the second to last scene, McNulty finds the torched car, walks up to Daniels like, "Hey, I'm not behind that story." Daniels doesn't want to hear it. He's just like, he walks away. McNulty looks at the torched car and, talking about like symbolism, kind of like to me, that just kind of represented like what they did. It was just pure chaos, recklessness. Didn't solve anything.
Nope.
Didn't accomplish anything, and he just looks like, what happened? Like, and that to me, it's like visual storytelling. And then Daniels like berates them, and it reminded me of like a dad just like yelling at their kids. Is like, what did you guys accomplish by doing this? Absolutely no information was gathered, and they find like who pistol whipped the kid. And you think for a second, like, Herc and Carver might say, but like Prezbo just says, I did. And they're like, why did you do it? He says, well, he's pissing me off. And you're right. He's just like, wow, what an asshole. Just Prez the Menace, And
Prez the Menace. That's his new name.
I'm telling you. And to touch on that too, Jack, about Daniel's talking to Prez, and we'll get into this on our next episode because it kind of is one of the beginning parts of episode 3. Daniels is telling Prez what to say to ID. Okay. So that Daniels is about a book person, but as many times I've seen the show, it wasn't until I was rewatching episode 3 again that I put the pieces together. But like, he's coaching him and telling him what to say. Okay, that's against the rules for sure, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, you're literally telling him how to lie, to get out of this charge. And when episode 3 opens and they're talking to Daniels about what happened, and Valchek says to him, thank you for getting him through this grand jury thing. As many times I've seen the show, I never put into perspective, like, other than Daniels telling him what to say to IID, he was actively coaching him through the grand jury process to get a lesser charge. Like, I never put those two pieces together. I thought he just told him, look, this is what you say to IID when they get here in a little bit, and that's it. But then when Valchek said, thank you for coaching him through this grand jury process, like, Daniels is actively talking to Prezboluski and coaching him in terms of what to say to get past this, not past just their initial interaction with IID. Like this is a
I think
little
he might.
process he has to go through.
I think
Like
he might just be referring to this conversation.
it may be
And Daniels is like, stick with the story, and Press just stuck with the
stuck with
story.
it. Okay,
So
maybe it's not that deep, and then
yeah.
is what I was thinking there because I was like, wait, he's walking him through, like he's coaching him through the whole thing. It's not just the one conversation. That's
No,
kind
I
of
think he was just telling him stick with the story
stick to the story. Okay,
and that was coaching. The scene bothered me, man.
yeah,
I didn't like Daniels. I didn't like the way this police corruption got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
The blinding of an innocent kid, 15 years old, is
yeah, that's tough.
freaking.
And Daniels, sorry, what are you saying?
No, I couldn't stand Daniels here coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like Daniels isn't blatantly corrupt like the other three, but he's looking the other way and he's gonna
Mhm.
defend them.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was always surprising how much throughout the show Daniels looked after Presbo, considering how much like he hated him right away.
yeah,
But yeah, that's what makes him an interesting character because he's not like that. You start off like he has this very like honorable figure to him. Comes off like this
mhm.
very like well established like guy who seems like a decent person, but he does some shady shit that you're like, wow, you're basically just covering up for blatant police brutality like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
agree. I definitely agree. Um, and then this is something too. I know we're wrapping up on our last couple scenes. This is just a small little scene. Do y'all remember when McNulty was drunk and he fell? He heard the people setting off the alarm and he
Oh,
kind of fell
that's at
down the hill.
that's at the end of this episode, right?
That's at the end, right? Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So we'll get to that. Yeah.
Um,
What's what's
Go
yeah.
ahead. Jack. No, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I was just gonna say that before that, there's the brief conversation at Daniel's house, and it shows the contrast to McNulty's like apartment where he lives by himself, and like this, he's got like one of those mattresses on just on the floor, like, and then
Mhm.
it shows Daniel's like this very nice house that he lives. He's having like a candlelight dinner with his wife, like they're more like high class in that
Mhm.
regards, and his wife is like she's really disgusted by what Presbo and Herc and Carver did. And
Mhm.
he says she's like, why are you defending him? And he says like, well, I have to. It's my job. He's like, because then I get blamed and then everyone hates me. He's kind of
Yeah.
just it's like, wow, okay. I guess that's more important to you than and it but he is conflicted. And I think that's what's interesting. That's what's great about it is that by the end of the episode you see that he really it's not that he likes what they did, it's more just like he realizes like there's only so much you can do
Mhm.
without just destroying your own career. And that's what makes him an interesting character because he's constantly throughout the show is caught between those two worlds of like the police ambition and doing
Mhm.
actual police work. And that's what
Yeah.
makes him such a fascinating character for me is that internal conflict throughout the show.
Yeah. It's
And
a good
he
scene.
does say, Marla does say too, like when she says the game is rigged, she kind of lays it out for him. Like, if you push too hard and something happens, you're blamed. If
Mm,
nothing happens, you're blamed. You
right.
have a weak staff. You have a staff that just assaulted a 14-year-old. Get out the case because the game is rigged. You're gonna lose regardless. Kind of thing. So it kind of is laying out kind of his uphill battle in terms of this case. Like he really was gonna lose regardless, kind of thing. Like it was he really there really was no leeway for him to win the case properly and not have any backlash behind it because of everything that was involved in a case. Like he had no chance to solve the case fine and not uncover any political corruption and stuff like that. The stuff that he couldn't run down, the stuff they didn't want him to look into. There's no way that he could have avoided some of that stuff. So he was going to get blamed no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what, it was going to fall on Daniels. So
You cannot lose if you don't play. That's where the quote comes in.
exactly.
It makes sense.
Enough.
And that's when he realized, like, all right, I guess I'm not going to do anything then. And
Mhm.
she kind of convinced him that the last scene, I'm sorry, the second to last scene, you're right, is McNulty just drinking in his car, just listening to music. And then he hears like people break into a car. He's like, police! Like he gets out of his car just hammered and stumbles down a hill, and then like he picks up his badge and he just like laughs to himself. He's like, what am I doing? Like, what is
Yes,
going
yeah.
on? It's like a moment of self-awareness. Like, look at me right now. I'm like,
That's the note that I took was okay. So I'm half drunk right now. This badge is useless. Pretty much. Like they didn't even, stop doing what they were doing when I said police. I'm stumbling. I'm falling. What's the point of this badge right now?
But
Right.
it also shows the difference, right, between McNulty and these three other guys. They get intoxicated. They go fucking pick on people on the projects, innocent people. McNulty actually sees people committing a crime, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not that's the biggest crime in the world."
Right.
And it's like, stop police, and so like it just shows like McNulty, he polices where it matters, right?
Mhm.
Like this little stealing the car. Yeah, I'm police. Fuck it.
Yeah, he prioritizes like what's actually important, where versus just some petty crime that isn't worth even investigating.
And McNulty's 100% a functional alcoholic.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For sure. No, for sure. And also too, this is just a little small scene when they show the kid sleeping on the couch. You see everybody passed out except Bodie. Bodie's the only one up. He's still up.
Yeah.
I'm working. Everybody else is asleep, passed out. So it just shows that I don't even think there were any words in that scene, but it just shows like, hey, Bodie he lives for this. This is what he does. He's really locked in. Everybody else is asleep. He's still up, focused, locked in, working his plays, working his area,
And he's more mature.
Yeah.
That's a great catch. He's more mature than the other guys who are like kids. He's like, hey, if this is the job, I gotta stay awake, and I mean, that's a good catch. So then we're up to the last scene, which is Daniels and his wife in bed, and he gets a call from the officer at the hospital, and he tells him he's like, I gotta get up because he finds out that the kid that Prezbo pistol whipped is the 14-year-old kid is blind in one eye.
Oh, you know what? Actually, Leland, you might be right.
What?
He's blind in one eye, so he's got to go coach Prezbo. He's got to go down and see and like talk about the case, but he probably coaches Prezbo after the blinding also.
That's just what I was because I thought when they showed like him berating Prez and Carver and Hurt, I'm like, okay, so that's in the morning. Okay. That's in the morning. And then it flashes to night at the end when he's talking to his wife. And then the next episode is them talking to Valchek and Burrell. And I'm like, when he just that little line coaching him through this grand jury thing. Like I didn't think that him telling him that story to get right for ID, I didn't think that was the grand jury thing. I thought there was another.
No, I think you're right.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think you're right because this just shows that the situation escalated because the kid is blind. Now you got.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, maybe just something I thought about, never connected, but just something I noticed in my rewatch now. So
yeah, so I think you're right. Yeah, man. So 10 out of 10 episode. Standout characters for me. McNulty, as always. I don't know. I'm gonna throw an honorable mention to the judge here for pulling a McNulty on McNulty.
Yeah. He's a great character too. He's the actor. He's so like he's just that old Irish guy. Like I know people like that. Is like I'm half Irish. I grew up around people like that all the time. Like so, it's just like he's such a real kind of guy to me. Yeah. He doesn't even come off like a judge, like this stately figure. He's just like a working guy.
There's a show on Netflix too called I think Gangs of London or something like that, and I think he's in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the judge is in it, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's one of the beginning characters in that show. But this is something we haven't talked about too either. Like people from The Wire, every time I see them as something else, they always command attention. Like no matter what. I've seen Bubbles and other stuff, Kima and other stuff.
Yeah, great actors.
I don't know if you all watch Law and Order SVU. I'm sure everybody's probably seen Law and Order SVU, but Nick Sabaka was one of the best characters and one of the best villains in Law and Order SVU. His episodes are some of the best. I think some of their highest rated episodes because he was another menace in that show. But his presence in that show, just like, man, that's my boy Nicky Zapata, man. Like he did really good on Law and Order. Like his character was phenomenal. He was really smart. Like he was burning off his fingertips so they couldn't find his ID. Like he was on another level. But he commanded. His presence was so good in that show. Like, and the actors, when I see them in other stuff, it's like, man, David Simon, you were spot on with who you casted because these are some phenomenal actors and they command presence off the outside of The Wire. Like, you know, he did a phenomenal job with his cast for sure. So
I've seen Nick in a lot of stuff. Like he was in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Where, Charlie Max stole his toys as a kid, and he goes to return them, or he goes to apologize years later. I'm like, wait, is that Nick Sabaka? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, holy shit. They show up in the most random places. Kima, I've been watching the show called The Shy on Showtime.
Yeah.
And she plays the mom in that, and it's like a different type of character.
It's different, yeah. She's very bold in this show. Yeah.
But, you're right. They always come back, and you're always like, "Hey, wait, that's that guy from the what?" You know, and it's like that. It's because no matter what you always kind of remember them as that character.
Yeah. Well, man, great job with the recap, man. Jesse and I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, bro, man. Great
job with your insights and your commentary, and I like all your observations. Are very well, well thought out.
And yeah, we'll let Jesse close us out. We just want to say anybody that interested in the podcast, like, share, subscribe. We're very grateful for all the feedback. Anything you want us to touch on in season 1 that you can think of, or just in other seasons too. Anything you want us to cover, because we're going to go through the whole show episode by episode, season by season. So anything you can think of, any ideas for future podcast episodes, we'd appreciate the feedback. So I'll let Jesse take us out.
I think that was a great closing. We're out of here.
All righty.
All right.